32. Tax planning your property tax, and the Dow hits 30,000. This is the 39.6 Facebook and YouTube Live Finance Show. The show that teaches high earners like yourselves how to make your money work for you, so you don't have to work for your money. We talk general investing, taxes, real estate, syndications, Airbnb, paying for college, paying for childcare, and even the car you drive. I missed doing an episode for the past 3 days. That's the longest I've gone without an episode since we relaunched. It's been a busy weekend over here. We moved out on Saturday. First time we'd actually formally moved out of our house in about 10 months. As we got a Airbnb booking for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is always a big booking time for us, and we weren't going anywhere for vacation. And my wife is on call, like working the entire Thanksgiving holiday. So said, well, let's just do it. Found a nice little house pretty close by. We get to stay in a nice little cute neighborhood here. And that was the first time moving the whole family with 2 toddlers. A lot more stuff to clean up and a lot more stuff to move. And I really wanted to do an episode yesterday because yesterday was November 23. That's Fibonacci Day. It's like my favorite math geek holiday of the year. But we missed that one. Anyhow, what committee is it called? The transfer of power is actively moving forward now. I don't talk politics much, but this is a huge, huge deal. And despite not having a concession, the process of transitioning to the president-elect is in place now. And although, you never really know exactly what's going on and why market changes change, well, the market took a nice bump this morning after basically yesterday's announcement. Possibly pure coincidence, very unlikely not. The Dow hit 30,000 today. Okay, so 30,000. I don't honestly keep up with the Dow that much, even though people always talk about the Dow. I mean, it's only like 30 stocks, and most people don't actually invest in the Dow, but it does make a general good marker of the overall American economy, although I think something like the S&P 500 is probably a better way to do that. Okay, my dog is enjoying scratching the pillow. Sorry. This is crazy because the first time I remembered learning about the Dow was I was like in 2nd grade or something, and this is in the late 80s. And we had the local newspaper. They were coming to our elementary school, and they were asking students about questions that they might have that they wanted to have put in the paper. They had a special little column for students to ask questions. And one of my classmates, he had asked the question. I remember it very clearly because I remember it getting posted. My question didn't get posted, but his did. And his question was, I hear the Dow is going to hit 3,000. What does that mean? Now, I don't remember the answer, but I remember the question. And I might be losing my connection. I hope it stays in place. Okay. That was 3,000. That was like in the mid 80s. This was probably before Black Monday, which was around this time of the year, usually like, I think it was October of 1987. But 3,000, it had never hit 3,000. Now the Dow is an index, which is equal to basically like the valuation of the 30 biggest companies, individual stock shares. And it's not always the same 30 companies. Sometimes it changes, but that was like late 80s. So that was 30 plus years ago. It is now 10 times that high. Okay, so that on average, the American stock market doubles approximately every 10 years. So if it doubled 3 times in the 30 plus years, that would be 8x. Now it went 10x, which makes sense because this was like 1980, might have been like 1986 or 87, and then going up to 2020 is 33 years. So it's like 3 1/4 doublings. So it actually makes sense, but it's crazy to think that that is 10 times more. So, yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, one day it's going to be like $300,000, right? Potentially in our lifetimes. And then I'm going to say, I remember when I was a little kid and we were talking about 3,000. Well, yeah, it's going to hit 100,000 probably within the next decade, right? Or a decade and a half. We'll see. It could watch. I could be completely wrong. It could go way, way, way later. Okay, so that's about that. We'll see what happens with that. Bitcoin also hit 20,000. Not that Bitcoin and the Dow are necessarily well related to each other, but hey, maybe Bitcoin is going to surpass the Dow. Who knows? HODL on, or is it HODL? HODL on? I don't know. I'm not a Bitcoin owner. All right. So enough about that. That is the market, and at least at the moment. So be it. Oh, also we have the whole multiple vaccines that have been announced within the past few weeks, and that has definitely stirred some confidence in economy. I would expect. And also with the transfer of power being in action, it does look like, or at least we don't know for certain because Georgia still has the runoff, but it's leaning toward the Senate being not Democratic, which would be a mix between the House, the White House, and the Senate, which statistically speaking, historically, economies have favored having more gridlock because there's less potential for substantial change. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act probably going to stay in place for the next few years or so. It's harder to make massive legislative tax changes when one of the arms is not the same. So anyway, the economy likes that. Okay, now tax planning. So it is almost December, and so we're gonna do another tax planning episode. I previously talked about how you have to estimate your estimate how much tax you will have had to pay by the end of the year by looking at your W-2 pay stubs. Look at how much they've withheld so far. Look at your total taxable income between you and your spouse. And this applies to W-2. 1099 is a little different because you need to subtract out your business expenses. But if you're W-2, it's not that hard. You just look at how much pre-tax income you and your spouse have made combined. You look at how much federal tax withholding has been completed, and you look on the tax graph that I made, and you look to see, okay, are you above? Are you below? Are you going to meet safe harbor or not? Okay. Now, other things to do are decide if you're taking the standard deduction or not. By this point in the year, you should know if you're taking the standard deduction or not. Standard deduction is on Schedule A, and it is about $25,000 for this year. So do you have $25,000 of deductions already accounted for? And if you already do, then you're not taking the standard deduction. This is really pretty easy. How much mortgage interest have you paid? Okay, if you've already hit $25,000 of mortgage interest on your homestead, you are not taking the standard deduction. Okay, that means you are itemizing. Okay, if you are itemizing, then you have to decide basically two things: property tax, charitable deductions. Okay, I'm going to do a separate episode on that. I think Giving Tuesday is coming up, or maybe I missed it. If not, I'll do it on Giving Tuesday. I think that's like the first Tuesday in December. We will see. But we're going to talk about property tax today. So if you have your mortgage payment on escrow, okay, so you're paying like a 1 monthly payment for your mortgage, property tax, and your insurance on the house. Okay, so the bank often sets up escrow when you initially get a mortgage because they want to make sure you're paying your property tax and that it's insured because they have more money in the deal than you do. Now, if it's escrowed it's a little bit more complicated because they are paying that bill themselves. Whereas if you don't have escrow, you pay the bill. Now, where we live in Dallas, Texas, you get your appraisal in like June, you get your bill in October, and then it can be paid basically starting in December. I think you get the bill in October, but you can pay the bill anytime. It is due by January 31. So they do this in a very nice way. They basically give your property tax, which is a big bill in Texas because there's no state tax, and they allow you to basically pay it in like November, December before the year's over, or you can pay it in January by January 31st and have no penalties. Now you can pay it after January 31st, but there's going to be a small penalty for every month you go later. And you really don't want to be late because then you kind of go onto a list, like the late list on the property tax rolls. And then you're going to start getting mailers from people trying to buy your house from you because they think that you're a delinquent taxpayer and that you can get they can buy your house from you. You just don't want to get on those naughty lists. But you can choose December or January. Okay, so we never pay a property tax like super early. We usually do it like the last week of December, or we do it in January. And this goes into tax planning. Now, when we initially bought the house, it was in escrow. And in general, the bank will pay it in December. Like when it comes in October, they pay it out and it comes out and it gets taken care of. And then at the end of the year, you get your form, like I think it's a 1098, and it has it's your mortgage statement, and it will say how much property tax was paid. It'll say right on there. You give that to your accountant for your taxes. One year, they actually forgot to pay. And I was like, hey guys, you didn't pay the property tax bill. I found out because I got that 1098 and it wasn't on there. And I was like, hey, what's going on? Because it's like the bank's responsibility to pay for that. So I argued with them. I said, you guys are irresponsible. You can't pay my property tax bill on time. Actually, it literally wasn't on time. It was like February. I missed the January 31 deadline. So we actually were late and they paid for the penalty. I said, you guys are irresponsible. Release my escrow now. I will pay the bill because you can't pay the bill. Because I hate escrow. And in one way, it's convenient, but you lose that control. It was fine because we didn't need to take that property tax deduction that first year because we were just out of training and and this didn't make much of a difference. But now we have the choice. Now, if you have it escrowed, you still could potentially, like if your escrow is not going to pay it by December 31, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from paying that bill yourself. You can write a check or pay online directly to your city, county, whatever, it's usually the county, for that property tax bill and take the deduction because you've paid it. But then the problem is your escrow has all this extra money in it. And then you're going to have to basically tell the bank, hey, I already paid for this, and deal with talking to the bank and basically get them to release that escrow back to you. I've never done that before, but theoretically, because every year they have to basically rebalance your escrow account. So if there's nothing to pay, if you can show them there's no balance due for the property tax, they should, whenever they balance out that annual escrow balance, they should pay it to you. But you could be waiting a long time to get that money. Okay. But if you're already meeting the standard deduction, then for most people, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and pay the property tax bill. Now, the property tax bill is tax deductible up to only $10,000. Ours is like $16,000. So that's $6,000 that's basically lost. Okay. So we're probably going to pay it because we are well over $25,000. Actually, not well over. We are going to hit $25,000 if by the end of December in mortgage interest. Okay. And so we're definitely itemizing for this year. Last year, we took the standard deduction. This year, we are definitely itemizing. But I still consider whether or not I'm going to pay that property tax bill this year or next year. Okay. Because, well, let's pretend next year I'm planning to itemize also, right? So let's pretend I know that tax rates are going to be higher next year than they are this year. Then you may consider taking the deduction next year. Okay. I don't know that, and I don't think it's going to happen. So that's not one of the reasons why. But remember that $16,000, I can't deduct all 16,000 of it. I can only deduct 10,000 of it. Okay. So there's $6,000 that's lost. And I could pay just $10,000 of it this year and then leave 6,000 of it to get paid next year. That is reasonable. But the issue is next year, like we never know what our life is going to be like, even months from now, even next week. I don't know where I might be sleeping. Because next year, let's just say, for example, we decide to rent out our house again, like most of the year. When you are deducting property tax as a rental expense, there's no cap on it. That's a business expense. Okay. It wouldn't work any other way. Like if you had $1 million property, or let's say a $10 million property, and you're capped off at $10,000 of mortgage interest, or sorry, $10,000 of property tax, there's a whole bunch of property tax you're not taking a deduction on. That $10,000 limit on property tax is only for your homestead. Okay. So I could theoretically, let's pretend, just if I were choose to take the standard deduction this year, not pay the property tax in December, let it roll over to January, pay January $16,000. Then let's pretend we moved out of the house, okay, and rented out the entire year. Then in December, I could pay 2021's property tax bill. So I get 2 property tax bills paid lumped into a single year. That's $32,000. And let's pretend we rent it as a short-term rental. So all these losses count, like for reals. They will go and deduct off my Schedule C. So then I will be able to take every single dollar of my property tax deduction next year if we were to convert it to a rental. Now it would take, I'd have to wait till like the following year to actually get that money back because I'd have to file my taxes for 2021. But it is something to consider because business rentals do not have a cap on property tax. Okay. It's also possible that, well, maybe I'm going to just barely hit $25,000 in mortgage interest, and we don't feel like making any charitable donation this year. Then it's like, okay, it's only the $10,000. Do I need to take it this year or do I take it next year? A lot of people are not itemizing because between mortgage interest and property tax, they're not hitting the standard deduction. But what you can do is let's pretend your mortgage interest and your property tax combined is just $25,000. And so there's still really no point to itemize. You could just take the standard deduction this year, not pay your property tax this year, pay for it in January. Then in 2021, in December or November, pay the property tax then. So now you've doubled up your property tax for 2021. Now, there's still a $10,000 cap, but it depends on like what state you're in and what those property tax rates are. Like, let's pretend it's only $5,000 for property tax in your property each year. So you could double them up, take the 2020 and the 2021 property tax bills, combine them, pay them one in January, one in December, that's $10,000. And that may get you over the standard deduction for 2021. Okay, you can also do the same thing with charitable deductions. Like last year, because we were living in an apartment and paying rent, and we did not deduct mortgage interest or property tax from our home because it was all on an Airbnb, all on the business side. We basically didn't have any homestead mortgage interest or homestead property tax to deduct. So if we were going to donate $50,000 into our donor advised fund, the first half of it would have just been to replace the standard deduction. Okay, then the next half of that would have actually saved us tax. So I said, well, Is it worth it? I mean, it's not that we don't want to be charitable, but if I'm going to be charitable, I want to get the most tax back I can. So we held off on the 2019 donation, and that is going to go into 2020. So we are going to double up our charitable donation this year. We are going to talk about that on Giving Tuesday, if I haven't missed it yet. So we still haven't paid our tax for our property tax yet. I may just do $10,000. That's actually a clever little tactic if you live in any state and your property tax bill is over $10,000 and you have the option of paying it in December or January. Not all states are like that. Some of them you pay them in the summertime. Like in Michigan, it's really our summer tax bill where you get hit, not the winter tax bill. But it's really nice that they do that for us here in Texas, at least in Dallas. All right. Gonna go run through my questions right here on the chat box. I don't understand that question. Do I have to? Okay. I thought you were renting your primary residence. We've lived in our primary residence from February of this year all the way through until Friday. So for basically like 9 months straight. And we're going to go back like next week. We're only moving out for a week. Okay. This is a question about solo 401ks. I will do this in a separate episode. Tomorrow, this is for your entertainment and my entertainment. For legal professional accounting or any other advice at all. Have a great day. Until then, take care.